The feeling of loneliness, an epidemic in the 21st century. We are a highly connected society, and yet we feel more alone than ever before. Why is that so? Why is loneliness actually becoming a veritable epidemic, whether we are children, adults or the elderly? I feel so lonely. How many times have you said that to yourself over the course of your life? Probably more than once, because this feeling can arise at any time, whether in childhood, adolescence or adulthood. Feeling lonely is actually normal from time to time. But it is not to experience it for months or years. According to UN data, there are about 7.5 billion people in the world. Thanks to the new technologies, we are also more connected than ever before. Nevertheless, we tend to feel more alone than ever before. Also, loneliness seems to hurt more than it ever did before. Loneliness is not only emotional with feelings such as sadness, despair or anxiety. Loneliness also has a serious impact on health and is a real epidemic with high costs. In fact, loneliness kills, and it does so in many different ways. The psychology department at the University of Chicago conducted a study in which they claimed that loneliness increases the risk of early death. This is due to heart attacks, obesity, abuse and unfortunately also suicide. In fact, it seems that the feeling of loneliness gradually destroys people's lives until they are completely defenseless. As humans, we need high-quality social connections where feelings of security and trust are predominant. Indeed, a constant stimulus where affection, reciprocity and support flow. The absence of this vital right can be devastating. Loneliness is a beautiful thing when you have someone to talk about it with. Gustavo Adolfo Becker. Why do you feel lonely? An article in the journal Social Psychiatry and Psychiatric Epidemiology introduced a crucial aspect to the topic of loneliness. An aspect that we should all consider. This study argued that until not so long ago we understood this concept in a unidimensional way. In other words, you feel lonely when you are isolated and you don't have a social network to support you. However, this approach is a mistake. First, loneliness is not always synonymous with isolation. Being alone is not the same as feeling alone. In other words, many people have partners, family and friends, yet experience deep and devastating loneliness. Why does it happen? Why do you often feel lonely, even though you have a network of people in your immediate environment? Let's look at the reasons. Personal stagnation. There are moments in your life when you are literally stuck. Nothing is moving forward. Nothing around you matters to you, and what's worse, you see no future joy on the horizon. In the midst of this stagnation and suffocation, your mind often falls into a state of introspection and continuous reflection. In this situation, loneliness tends to sprout. When your life no longer has any meaning, you begin to create a layer around yourself. It is as if all your relationships are gradually losing their value and importance. You have family and friends, but these are not meaningful relationships. One of the reasons for the feeling of loneliness is that the people who are around you are not available. It means that you don't trust your family. You don't feel supported by them either. The friends you count on are only good to have fun with. You cannot share your worries with them. In fact, your relationship with them is superficial. You have no specific person with whom you can express yourself or share your hobbies, tastes and secrets. Today, emotional loneliness is more common than social loneliness, where a person does not have a close support network. You do everything for others, and you experience the feeling of loneliness. This feeling is very common in caregivers or those people who are used to burdening themselves with a larger number of responsibilities. This is because they are aware of others, 24 hours a day, and there comes a time when their own needs come second. Sooner or later the feeling of loneliness arises. The relative experiences that he/she is left in the lurch, that the environment only sees him/her as a person who is only there to give and not to receive. Adversity not overcome, a loss and emotional break, the weight of a traumatic childhood. These are the kinds of events that no one is prepared for. They are painful and one is not always able to overcome them. In fact, they leave wounds that are extremely difficult to heal. Moreover, the fact that you have not yet confronted them often leads to a feeling of constant and painful loneliness. In these situations, your emotional relationships do not last long. All the bonds you create are unstable, and no one friend or partner seems to meet all your needs. These wounds from the past are an obstacle to creating and maintaining a stable and secure network of people you can count on in the future. When the feeling of loneliness turns into abuse, there is one type of loneliness that deserves special attention. It is related to older people. Today, this reality is a true epidemic, a social alarm that requires attention and strategies. Because there are a larger number of older adults, mostly women, who live in a situation of isolation and involuntary loneliness. Sometimes they have relatives, neighbors and social services who are interested in their situation. However, none of this seems to be sufficient, valid or meaningful to these people. This is because there are too many hours in the day in a house where there is only silence. These situations leave traces that accelerate the cognitive decline and diseases that already exist in the elderly. Therefore, it is necessary to establish other, more active mechanisms to deal with the isolation of the elderly. Our society is indeed moving towards a situation with increasing life expectancy, and therefore new intervention care strategies must be created. In conclusion, it can be said that the feeling of loneliness is not chosen and that it is one of the greatest enemies of our time. It requires not only greater sensitivity, but also concrete emergency measures. Loneliness is synonymous with social exclusion, and it can occur at any age with serious consequences. Act, be more sensitive and ask for help if you need it.